On this Thursday night, Hillary Clinton on the record. What the former U.S. Secretary of State told lawmakers about Jeffrey Epstein, why her deposition was briefly paused.
And today we are sitting through an incredibly unserious clown show.
And who she says should testify. The federal conservative leader outlines his strategy, why he's going to Europe, and what he's now saying about the U.S. president. Instagram's plan aimed at protecting its youngest users from self-harm.
I think this is an important measure, but in many ways it seems like very retrospective.
The limits to the initiative, plus plotting exit strategies.
Oh, you have to leave.
Inside the Quebec escape room named the world's best.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Another chapter in the investigation into who knew what about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is unfolding in the U.S. And critics call it a political stunt. Former First Lady and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was called to testify before a House Oversight Committee, though she says she has never met Epstein and didn't know about his crimes. The hearing was held behind closed doors, and hours later, Clinton emerged to say she wants the truth to come out.
It was disappointing that they refused to hold a public hearing, so I wouldn't have to be out here characterizing it for you. You could have seen it for yourself.
She told the closed-door hearing the person who should be called to testify is the man who is in the White House right now. Mike Armstrong has our top story tonight.
That's her.
It had the feel of a major political showdown, but for all the spectacle outside, the deposition itself was behind closed doors. Hillary Clinton says the questioning was very long and very repetitive.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices.
Now, Bill Clinton is set to testify Friday. He is in the Epstein files. He's acknowledged flying on Epstein's plane multiple times and knew the late financier and convicted sex offender socially. Republicans insist they're not targeting the former First Family, but are out to understand how Jeffrey Epstein built his wealth and influence and whether powerful connections helped protect him.
To my knowledge, the Clintons haven't answered very many, if any, questions about their knowledge or involvement with Epstein and Maxwell.
Well, what the Clintons had already done was submit sworn statements to the committee saying they had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes. Clinton says she was forced to testify anyway to distract attention from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. Well, Democratic lawmakers say compelling a former president to testify now sets a precedent.
The person who actually appears more times in the files than the former president, who we want to speak with, is President Donald Trump.
Now, Clinton says her husband will testify that he too knew nothing about Epstein's crimes. She says her questioning went in strange directions at times. She was asked about UFOs and the Pizzagate conspiracy and says she looks forward to her testimony being made public.
I don't know when the video will be out. I don't know when the transcript will be out. We've asked that they be out as quickly as possible, and then you can see everything. Thank you.
Now, the proceedings were paused for a time midday. A conservative podcaster posted a photograph from inside the hearing. He says it was sent to him by a Republican lawmaker, which would be a breach of committee rules. That lawmaker claimed not to remember.
I guess in regards to any photos, I do not recall.
Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Another high-profile figure, the head of the World Economic Forum, has quit after his connection to Epstein came to light. In a statement, Borge Brenda says now is the right moment for the forum to continue its important work without distractions. The forum launched an independent review earlier this month after Brende, a former Norwegian foreign minister, admitted having dinner with Epstein 3 times. The Epstein files also revealed text and email communication between the two continued until just months before Epstein died in prison. Brende claims he was unaware of Epstein's previous conviction of soliciting a minor for prostitution. Canada's Prime Minister is on his way to India for a trade mission. Mark Carney has said he wants to reset the relationship with India. There has been a serious rift since former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said agents of the Indian government were linked to the murder of a Sikh activist in BC. Many in the Sikh community were unhappy with Carney's trip and now can't believe senior officials in his government say they no longer believe India is linked to violent crimes in Canada. Jillian Piper explains.
The Prime Minister is on his way to India, leaving behind backlash brewing at home.
There's no one else right now has the courage to speak out.
On the eve of the trip, a senior government official who routinely briefs reporters ahead of the Prime Minister's travel on the condition they are not identified, said the government is confident that agents of the Indian government are no longer participating in violence, extortion, and murders against Canadians, which some Liberal MPs reject.
I am asking for a comprehensive review of the duties and responsibilities of this individual who's not even close to the reality.
Take a very firm stance that the Indian government cannot interfere.
Agents of the government of India.
Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau publicly accused agents of the Indian government of the murder of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil in 2023.
Criminal activity orchestrated by agents of the government of India.
The RCMP has also linked India's government to a broad array of violence in Canada, often targeting pro-Khalistani activists.
We continue to see families get warnings for risk to their lives. And yet we're supposed to believe that this problem has been solved.
When asked whether she believes Indian agents are still targeting Canadians, the Foreign Affairs Minister would not say.
No country will ever have a pass in terms of the domestic safety and security of Canada, period.
The NDP says the government owes Canadians a clear response.
For an official to actually deny that this is happening, it is absolutely shocking to me, and it is absolutely outrageous.
Mark Carney is expected to meet with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the coming days. And in a written statement, his office says the safety and security of Canadians will always be the government's top priority. Donna?
Jillian Piper in Ottawa, thanks. The leader of the official opposition was in downtown Toronto today speaking to business leaders about his vision for how to handle international trade. And for the first time, Pierre Poilievre is taking a tougher line on the U.S. president. The Conservative leader unveiled new policies his party will push for in future trade talks. Our chief political correspondent David Akin reports on the new approach and why Poilievre might be pivoting now.
When Pierre Poilievre spoke to his party's faithful in Calgary last month, any mention of U.S. President Donald Trump was conspicuously absent, an absence even some in his own party thought odd.
If I were to offer any criticism, it's he didn't talk about the 800-pound gorilla pounding on our country every week, and I just don't think you can ignore the Trump reality.
A month later, with multiple polls now showing Poilievre and the Conservatives falling further and further behind Mark Carney's Liberals, Poilievre is taking a different tack, and that means talking tough about Trump.
What President Trump says about Canada is wrong.
Trump is wrong, Poilievre said, to make light of Canada's sacrifices in Afghanistan. Wrong on trade, and wrong on jokes.
The President's talk of 51st statehood, whether it is a joke or not, is unacceptable.
Poilievre also had new ideas about how to get tough with Trump when it comes to trade talks.
It's all about leverage.
Or, to use the new term Poilievre has coined, unbreakable leverage, the centerpiece of which is a significant new policy proposal to create a strategic energy and mineral reserve and threaten to withhold Canadian minerals unless U.S. tariffs are removed.
If we were to make clear that these reserves will be kept on Canadian soil under Canadian lock and key, but that our allies would have access to them in the event that we're on the same side of a global conflict, and in the event that they provide us with tariff-free trade, then we're building up unbreakable leverage to get what we want.
Poilievre is expected to repeat some of the themes in today's speech next week to a European audience. Global News has learned Poilievre will embark on his first ever international trip as opposition leader, stops in London and in Berlin. His itinerary has yet to be made public, but the Conservatives are clearly betting that if Canadians see Poilievre in a different light and hear him talking about new policies, well, that might help reverse some of those sliding poll numbers. Donna.
David Akin, thank you. Canada's 6 biggest banks are having a good year. They all posted higher profits than expected in their first quarter earnings. RBC, CIBC, TD, BMO, National Bank and Scotiabank each made billions despite elevated unemployment in Canada and uncertainty over trade. Royal Bank profited the most, nearly $5.8 billion in the 3-month period ending January 31st, a jump of 13%. TD and CIBC delivered the largest year-over-year increases, up 45% and 43%, respectively. Alberta's government has just delivered its latest budget, and the picture isn't bright. There are hints tax hikes could be on the way. Alberta has a deficit, and with no provincial sales tax and the lowest corporate and personal tax rates in the country, it relies heavily on its oil and gas royalties. Though, as Heather Urix-West explains, provincial debt levels have only climbed under that strategy.
Alberta's budget is in the red for the second year in a row, with no plan to reach a balance anytime soon.
I recognize that this is a tough pill to swallow, but this deficit reflects our commitment to providing top quality services while managing substantial drops in the price of oil.
Alberta is expecting a $9.4 billion shortfall, more than doubling last year's deficit, thanks to slumping oil forecast to average around $60.50 a barrel this year. That puts the province's total debt at more than $111 billion, up from $0 in 2004. When then Premier Ralph Klein boasted his government had paid Alberta's debt out in full.
Alberta needs to sort out a game plan because we are very dependent on oil prices. A $1 change in the price of oil or in the differential is about $750 million on an annual basis.
Alberta remains the only province in Canada without a provincial sales tax, with the lowest corporate and personal tax rates as well. Budget 2026 included a table showing how much more revenue Alberta would bring in if the province was to implement the tax structures of other provinces, with the lowest an additional $16.9 billion if Alberta had the tax structure of BC.
If Albertans want to give up some of that advantage to get off the roller coaster, that's a conversation we can have. We'll see if Albertans are more tax averse or debt averse, I guess, in the days and months ahead.
But Alberta is holding off on bringing in any significant tax hikes for now. Spending is holding steady, with the government increasing its education and healthcare budgets after public outcries last year over large class sizes, crowded hospitals, and dangerously long wait times inside Alberta's ERs. Donna?
All right, Heather Urix-West in Calgary, thank you. The federal government has announced a major boost in funding for Jordan's Principle, a legal rule which requires First Nations children have equal access to social and health services. More than $1.5 billion is being pledged to help ensure access to services without delays.
This is an opportunity to right some wrongs, and it's an opportunity for our children to receive the essential services that they need.
Grand Chief Garrison Settee says there is a backlog of about 140,000 applications for things like medical care and mental health support. Jordan's Principle is named after 5-year-old Jordan River Anderson. He didn't receive the care he needed and died because of a government dispute over who would pay the costs. Instagram under pressure and under scrutiny. Coming up, the drawbacks to its new plan that's supposed to protect children. For years, the impact social media is having on kids has been a top concern for many parents. Now Instagram is rolling out a big change. It says it will start alerting parents if their kids repeatedly search for terms linked to suicide and self-harm. Taria Isri explains the new strategy and why critics think it fails to address Instagram's deeper problems.
It's a first-of-its-kind warning system in the face of growing public pressure.
It's a real move forward that the industry is acknowledging the link between youth mental health and social media use and the risk for suicide.
The platform will start alerting parents if your child repeatedly searches Instagram about potentially harmful topics related to suicide or self-harm.
Viewing images of self-harm is associated with greater incidence of teens either seeking it out more online or actually committing self-harm themselves.
The timing coincides with a landmark trial in the U.S. Meta and YouTube's owner Google are being sued for allegedly getting children addicted to social media.
A teen is 4 to 7 times more likely to become addicted to something in comparison to adult, which is why we have limits.
But there are limits to Instagram's new reporting system. Parents need to sign up for alerts, and then there's the challenge of finding mental health support.
I don't think it goes far enough, and I don't think it's an integrated or coordinated enough response to the magnitude of this problem.
The notifications are rolling out in Canada, the US, Britain, and Australia, which recently banned social media for users under 16.
Well, I certainly hear from my constituents that many of them think that we should be looking at some of the other countries that have moved in that direction.
Those discussions are happening against the backdrop of a wider conversation about how to rein in big tech. Canada and other countries are investigating Grok AI for producing sexualized deepfakes of children, while OpenAI has come under scrutiny for not informing Canadian police about the Tumblr Ridge shooter's disturbing interactions with ChatGPT.
Our approach has always been to make sure that we have the right tight regulations.
And calls for regulation are intensifying as AI amplifies concerns about what kids see online. Taria Isri, Global News, Montreal.
Ahead, a possible motive in the shootout that killed 4 people in Cuban waters. That was a cooling tower from a decommissioned coal-fired power plant in Germany. It was reduced to rubble in a controlled explosion. Germany plans to phase out coal-fired power generation by 2038. Just under 60% of Germany's electricity is now from renewable sources, largely wind and solar. Cuba's president is vowing to defend his country against what he calls terrorist and mercenary aggression. Yesterday, Cuban authorities say a speedboat registered in Florida approached the island. 10 people were on board and shots were fired at Cuban border guards. 4 on board the speedboat were killed. As Jackson Prosco reports, a U.S. energy embargo has tensions running high.
Grappling with a humanitarian crisis, Cuba now faces threats to its stability after Cuba's government said it thwarted an alleged terrorist infiltration at sea.
Suffice it to say, it is highly unusual to see shootouts in open sea like that.
The incident unfolded just off Cuba's northern coast Wednesday. Cuban officials say 4 Cuban exiles were killed and 6 others wounded when their Florida-registered speedboat opened fire on a Cuban patrol boat. They allege the ship was carrying assault rifles, improvised explosive devices, and tactical gear.
So there may have been a longer, more strategic effort on the part of some Cubans to try to accelerate the process of regime change through staging some form of protests and disruption on the island.
The brother of one of the victims told the Associated Press he had fallen into an obsessive and diabolical quest to overthrow Cuba's communist government. There's no evidence of U.S. government involvement.
There's an embargo, there's no oil, there's no money, there's no anything.
The Trump administration has been increasing pressure on Cuba since capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
A lot of folks were really excited in Miami and in South Florida, and they were expecting a similar assault on perhaps Raul Castro, and then nothing happened.
The ongoing U.S. energy embargo has put real strain on the communist regime, but Washington says it remains focused on negotiations, appearing to be wary of any action that would collapse the government and trigger a refugee crisis. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Immersive enigma next. Why this Quebec escape room has been named best in the world. If you want to test your teamwork, getting out of an escape room is one way to do it. They exist all over the place, but only one has been named best in the world, and it is in Laval, Quebec. It apparently has an emotional ending that regularly brings people to tears. Dan Spector went to check it out.
I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
After being told you're not allowed to enter the big top because you're late, a mysterious cloaked character offers you a tantalizing invitation that launches a drama-packed journey of puzzles and intrigue.
Oh my God!
This is Magnifico, the #1 escape room in the world for 2 years straight. When you come across the enthusiastic actors and carefully crafted set design that bring the creepy circus environment to life, it's not hard to see why the team here has the international escape room community firmly under its spell.
The closest thing I could compare it to is a movie. Like, it's everything you see in a movie, like special effects and timing, and things have to happen at the right time. The actors need to time themselves with what's happening to get that, emotional hit.
Moments of elation when Magnifico was named the world's best at the Terpeca Awards.
Are you ready?
Yes! Now fans of the art form are flocking here from all over.
Mexico,
Australia,
Kuwait.
The best magician in town just arrived!
Driscoll hires trained actors and members of improv troupes who can think on their feet and quickly respond to what players say. About 20 of them work on Magnifico. It's kind of like going to the theater, but
Instead of being like spectators, they're in the play with us, and they're the main characters.
their work is not easy. The experience can be up to 3 hours long, but the actors say they love it.
Every single circus is different. Every single group is different. You never know what is going to happen until it does.
It's not all smiles. Some people get so wrapped up in the story, they're in tears by the end.
That's one of the biggest compliments.
As humans, we want to feel things, and this is what this experience brings out compared to anything else out there.
Magnifico cost $1.4 million to build, and it's one of 9 different experiences at the Escaparium. They also have the 5th, 8th, and 36th best escape rooms in the world. Dan Spector, Global News, Laval, Quebec.
Wow, that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Dunchurch, Ontario. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Jeff Semple will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.